make it all right. We got to brave the weather.
It's AFA Today on AFR Talk, and today coming to you from our gracious hosts at the Bethel Bible Institute in Queens, New York. We're in one of the 5 boroughs of the big city, and we're here because of a very important local issue that I'll be taking on at a later portion of the day. But AFA Today rolling on no matter where we are. We're glad that you're with us, and thank you for being here. We're talking about India Partners. If you're watching on the AFA channel, there's a phone number that keeps popping up on the bottom of your screen. That's the number I want you to call as you are listening to David talk about what we have been praying for and hoping and believing that God would deal with for these last several weeks that we've been telling you about this. And if you're online, just jump over to afr.net, click the India Partners button. You will see how easy it is to give your gift online, and please take advantage of that opportunity to do that as easily and quickly and as simply as it is. It's a couple of minutes, but again, if you're watching, call that number on your screen. And then if you're online, you can also jump on afr.net. It's 800-678-9962, 800-678-9962. If you are not watching online, that's the phone number that you can call. And friends, just take out your smartphone right now. Pick it up, dial the number, stick it in your bank of phone numbers, 1-800-678-9962, and then whether you hit dial right now or later, you've got it already in there, and you can just hit it when you're ready to make your call. But please don't delay. David, the overall goal that we've been talking about is about 5,000 nights of safety, and that, obviously there's only 365 days in a year, so we're talking about meeting the needs of a lot of kids. Yeah. But thus far, the AFR audience has been very, very generous. What have we done thus far, and how far are we away from achieving that goal?
Well, the good news is that we have surpassed that initial kind of entry-level goal, if you want to call
fantastic.
it that. That's happened today alone, so thank you very much for that. With everything happening on AFR, there's all kinds of really cool things happening. In fact, just to give you a hint, we're about 1,000 days of safety away from 10,000.
Oh, wow. So,
and of course, because the needs are great, because there are 40 beds in each safe house that we operate, this is an ongoing need that continues to need to be funded. So,
how many safe houses are there, David, that India Partners is the primary operator
of? There are 3 primary ones for the girls, right? Plus we have boys, and we have connections for the women that come out as well. So,
oh, wow.
There's a lot of them, and we're just excited. And by the way, when I was just there a couple of weeks ago, I asked them the question. I said, what keeps you from having more safe houses? Because the demand seems to be there.
Sure.
And they said, it's just the funding. If we had more funding, we would have more houses. And so what's happening today, and by the way, just to buy a house in one of these areas that is away from the downtown area, and they're big houses, they have to be to house 40 people.
Yeah, if you're going to have 40 people in it, you got to have some space.
Yeah, the cost on average for a house that size is about, in U.S. dollars, about $300,000.
Okay.
So just the reality is that we can grow and expand the ministry based on the funding, and that's pretty much basic math, right?
Okay.
And so when we ask for these gifts to provide days of safety, if we continue to go, we will add houses to the number of safe houses that are provided.
And when you're talking about girls that are caught in the sex trade, particularly in that region of the world, you're talking about tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of young kids that are at risk.
Well, it is into the millions, actually, of children that are at risk. The women alone, just the ones that we can even somewhat document, if you want to call it that, and as a conservative estimate, it's about 3 million. And so of those, at least 1 million of them, a third of them, are under age 18.
Wow.
And that's just India, So the numbers can be staggering. But we don't want you to think about big numbers. I always try to get it down to a person. You asked me to think of some stories.
And that's where the hope is, because there's no way that somebody listening today can go, well, I can take care of 3 million kids for even one night. But if we can rescue one, then we can start working on the second, and that's where the hope comes from. So introduce us to somebody that's been helped.
Well, I met a girl named Payal, 11 years old, and the thing that will strike me about Payal. Yes, her story is tragic. Her mom was abused and beaten up. She was, without going into detail, was also in that same situation as a 7-year-old. But she's out. And she's out because her mother said, that's enough. I may not be able to get out, but here, take my daughter, basically sacrificing and giving her daughter to get into a safe house. So I sit down with her, and she's now 11 years old. She's been in the safe house for about 4 years. And you were absolutely dead on correct when you said that it takes years to overcome the trauma of what they've been exposed to at a very young age. So I sit there with my microphone. I'm going to record her, and through an interpreter, I ask the question, can you just describe what it was like in the red light district? And I wasn't thinking the actions. I was just thinking physically, the
conditions,
conditions, right? Can you just describe that? So as it makes its way through the translator to her, she looks up, and without saying a word, and just the tears start to fall. And she has a hard time speaking. And I thought, you know what? I have picked a scab that I should not have. I shouldn't have gone down that road. But then, and so I'm about ready to just kind of move on and apologize. And all of a sudden, she just starts talking. Through the tears, she starts talking about what happened to her mom and how she grieves for her mom. She started talking about what happened to her. And I don't want to get graphic, but what typically happens to the children that are born as a result of being in the red light district, they are exposed to things that no one should be. And so she was actually put out of the house when the customers were there, but they would literally throw her out of the house onto the street. And because she was a child, she didn't have much clothing, and so inappropriate things occurred. And
Sure.
so she comes in and she starts talking about this, and she's just crying and crying. And so we get through all that, and I'm leaving a lot out on that discussion, but I get to the next question, which is, what has happened since being here at the safe house? And that was when she, still through tears, started talking about the love of Jesus. That she had experienced it in her life as a result of being at the safe house. The healing had come and was in the process of coming. And then she said the words that just to this day kind of rivet and stick in my head. She said, I want my mom to understand what Jesus has done for me.
Oh, wow.
I want her to come out also. And just a daughter at 11 years old understanding what had happened to her and wanting her mom to come out. There was still grief. There was still a lot of pain. Man. But you saw that happen. You saw her reach out. And this is why when we ask people to call that number, which again is 800, I'll throw this in there, 800-678-9962, 800-678-9962. We're literally about the business of introducing them to a God who changes their identity, that brings the healing that they so desperately need. But it's not going to happen if they're so confused by their surroundings and in a danger of being, as you said, just beaten down. I experienced the same thing you did. You get to women who have been in that for long, and they just look just beaten down in every sense of the word.
The catatonic is a good word.
That's a good word.
Because they stare off into space. And it's something that, especially if they're recruited into this as a young girl or kidnapped or forced into it, it's a coping mechanism to somehow disconnect emotionally from everything in their heart and their feelings and their mind while the abuse takes place. And it becomes the permanent state that they find themselves in. It's really, really sad and heartbreaking. And friend, everything that David is saying is multiplied hundreds of thousands of times over. And I just gotta say, this is something that when you give to a day of safety today, a night of safety, you're not just bringing physical relief to pain or to trauma. You are bringing the message of the gospel. You are bringing the hope that only Jesus can provide. So please, as you're thinking about this, go to the phone, 800-678-9962, 1-800-678-9962. David, you mentioned the girls, and everybody thinks naturally of the girls, but there are young boys that are caught up in this as well. And India Partners supplies services to a home that helps with boys. I opened the hour with a story about a home that I was aware of. What is the condition there for little boys?
Well, we do have a home for boys. We have one home for boys with, again, about 40 boys in there. They run into the same situation. Unfortunately, they are also needed, quote unquote, in the trade, and so they get trafficked as well. Now, it's not as common in India as it is to have girls trafficked, but it is definitely there. And so when we talk about the India Partners ministry, the support of the boys' home is part of that, as well as the girl home. So we're just ecstatic by that. And I don't know if I mentioned this. You asked about where we're at. I think we're, as I said, about 1,000 nights of safety away from 10,000. And I will throw this out here just because, hey, we never know what God's going to do, but there might be a way to get to that 10,000 nights of safety here within the next half hour. Just
Sure.
if people would call, go online with the reach of AFR, and we hope with the compelling stories that we're telling, because it's the reality and it's a calling,
Yeah.
I believe, on a believer's life.
Not only that, David, AFA Today listeners here on AFR Talk, there's a certain sense of the people that listen to this broadcast. They know that the expectation from one Calvin McCullough is that we don't live a passive position in this life.
Right.
Our goal each day is to obliterate confusion, amplify truth, and pursue clarity. And the clarity in this moment is there's a lot of people that didn't know anything about this before this radio show came on today, but there's a lot more people that have now heard about it. And friend, if you're listening right now, I need you to step up, not only just to be a binge thinker, but a binge actor today. I need you to go out and act on the information that you now have, to know that these kids are being cruelly and insufferably treated in such a way. David, the New Testament makes it clear. Jesus made it perfectly clear that when you rob the innocence of a child, that's a big, bad thing in Jesus' book. So much so that he said it would be better if you put a millstone around your neck and threw yourself into the ocean. Now, think about this. Those millstones weighed about 4,000 pounds, right? They'd roll them around, very heavy, crashing the rice and the grain into powder, turning it into actual usable flour. That's what he's saying. It's better for you to have around your neck than to harm the hair of one of these that God loves so dearly. And I can't think of a worse way to hurt them than to ritually abuse them in such a way that they lose connection, feeling, consciousness. They just have an utterly hopeless outlook, so much so that they have to be chained in many instances to even perform their duties or their services, because they would likely kill themselves, injure themselves, or try to escape if they didn't. I mean, this is the insufferable cruelty that is meted out against these children. And friends, when you make the call, 1-800-678-9962, 800-678-9962, and help us close that gap of the final 1,000 to get to 10,000 nights of safety. There's $7.08 each. When you do that, you're actually taking a child and you're moving them from death into life. You're taking them from fear into hope. You're taking them from uncertainty and doubt and all kinds of negative emotions and realities into the love of Jesus and everything that he offers for them. Friends, you can't do this physically yourself. David, you and I can't do it. We can't move to India and open up this home, but India Partners is already there. They're already doing it. All we have to do is support the work that is going on now, and we will be doing the will of God. We'll be accomplishing the work of the kingdom while still in this life.
And I think that's I'm sitting in your amen corner, brother. I'm looking at this saying that if we claim to follow Jesus, then we are also salt and light into this world. And if you wanted to be a light in a dark place, this is that opportunity. And I wanted to, if I could, impress you for just a moment, and I'm joking about that. I'm going to give you a short physics lesson. I've used this earlier today, but to me, we talk about that $7.08. That's one day in the safe house. So right. $50 is a week, $100 is 2 weeks. You want to do a whole month, that's $212. But here's the physics lesson of why that $7.08 is so important. And I read this, and it struck me as the importance of just starting the process to change a life is usually a simple thing. So the physics is a domino, just literally physically a little domino that your kids play with, right? That, and what do we do with them? We put them on end and we tip them into the next one, and we create these cool little chain reactions. But the physics of this, and I know my dad would be surprised that I'm doing physics, but the physics of this I've learned is that if you take one domino, you set it on end and you tip it into the next domino, the mass and the energy of the tipping is enough to knock the next domino over 1.5 times its size. If you then take that chain reaction all the way down to 29 levels, you are tipping over a domino the height of the Empire State Building. And so what that means is you start the process with one seemingly simple tip, and I believe God provides all that energy with other people and with what God's Holy Spirit can do. And pretty soon we can tackle a problem like human trafficking and do a huge impact, but it starts with the first domino at $7.08.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. David Harms of India Partners. And friend, all of the, now you know the truth. The truth is there. The truth is these kids are facing inhumane, dehumanizing, criminal, cruel, extreme situations. India Partners, in the love of Jesus, is doing everything they can to undo that, a child at a time, one at a time. But they're keeping their beds full. They're doing everything they can to see to it that they rescue as many kids as possible. Right now, the only thing that's left to determine is, will those of us that understand this need, understand the insane cruelty that is being carried out against these kids, will we have the heart of Jesus in this matter? Will we say, not on my watch, not while I knew the right thing to do, will I not do it? We're going to choose instead to be active, to put into practice what we believe, and to exercise our faith in a significant way. And that's why I want AFA Today listeners to not just go to the phone one by one. I want dozens going to the phone right now. The most important step of life is taking the step that leads to action. This is your chance to do that. David Harms, thank you for being with us. I know you got to run, but we're grateful that you're with us today. Come on back anytime.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Kevin. And keep calling. We're going online.
800-678-9962, 1-800-678-9962, afr.net. Kevin McCullough coming back. Stay with us.